welcome to your award-winning The Reasons I'm Broke podcast, bringing you the reasons we're broke every single week through news and headlines ranging from comics, movies, TV, video games, and more. Today we are going through sector number 453 with someone who is returning to the podcast. It has been, I think, almost a year, if not a little bit over. He's been on, should have been a few times by now. But if you are at all involved in the Snyder Cut movement, if you have been involved in pushing for not only Zack's vision, but in celebrating the DC Extended Universe, you have seen Manu from the film Exiles, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, Vero, and Manu is back on the show to help out with today's episode. Manu, it is a privilege. Thank you so much for returning.
Thank you so much for the invite and for that incredible introduction. I really hope that I can live up to it in the time that we'll spend together. But I got to say that it feels great to be back on. It feels great to be recording again. It feels great to be on with you. And you know how I feel about you. You're a very dear friend, and every opportunity that I get to talk is a privilege to me as well.
That's very kind of you to say, Manu. I really appreciate it. And the best part of it, as we were saying before we were recording, you don't have to edit any of this. You can just chill, relax. You may have seen Manu on the Snyder Cut debates on the RT Snyder Cut account YouTube channel. And this, you don't have to edit, my friend. It is just sit back, enjoy.
Oh, yeah, and I definitely plan on enjoying my time with you, Dan.
Awesome. Let's jump right into this week's news. Jim and John Thomas have filed a lawsuit against Disney. So this has caused changes and delays for the Predator franchise in specific. They were hoping to cancel the initial transfer of copyright that they had made to 20th Century Fox when they sold the original screenplay. That original screenplay almost became a comic book. It got canceled when the Disney buyout happened, the monopoly happened. According to the complaint, the effective termination date for the screenplay, which was originally titled Hunters, passed on April 17th, meaning that if Disney did not settle with the Thomases, which so far I have not seen any kind of public statement, it is likely that their planned Predator reboot from 10 Cloverfield Lane director Dan Trachtenberg will have to be delayed until this is all settled. What are your thoughts on Disney's handling of the Predator project and really copyright in general for this?
Well, I first off, I think it's a very interesting case. I'm sure stuff like this happens more often than we know, but I'm really glad to see that this was so much in the forefront, because I feel like a lot of this stuff usually takes place in the background and it disappears in the background. So I'm really glad that it came out. And honestly, it's kind of crazy what's going on. Like, I don't think that Disney has ever been put in quite a situation like this, where they were basically caught off guard and a little bit like taken on their ropes, because it seems like they had plans and they were ready to move forward, and all of a sudden for that huge conglomerate to be just like stalled is it's kind of really interesting to see, especially how they navigate it. I think the part of it that to me that jumps out the most is I feel very bad for Dan Trachtenberg, because it feels like every time that he's about to start working on a project, something happens. He recently was taken off of the Uncharted movie that was supposed to be filmed with Tom Holland in the lead over creative differences. So this is another blow for him, I'm sure. But it's Disney. I'm sure that with their army of lawyers and their banks of money, they'll find a way of getting around this and getting this stuff back on track.
Instead of paying the guy, they're going to, yeah, you're right. These people, Jim and John are not going to get their settlement. That's for sure.
And even if they do, it'll be a fraction of what they should really be getting for their work, because creating a franchise like Predator that has been around and has spawned as many sequels as it has, this should be a big payday for them. So I do hope that it turns out in their favor in some ways.
Did you see the last Predator film before the buyout happened?
Yeah. I saw it opening weekend. I was in theaters. I was there.
I was there too, and let me tell you, because it is the same director as Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. Do you happen to
Yeah,
remember his name?
Shane Black.
Shane Black,
Shane
that's
Black.
right. And I was so excited for this because of his previous
Yes.
work. And
And
then,
that incredible cast. That cast is spectacular.
yes. And then I saw this thing, and I don't know how you felt about it, but this felt like an MCU Predator film. It was full of jokes. I was so disappointed in this thing, especially from Shane Black, who feels so strongly about the Predator franchise that, I can't even joke anymore that we're going to get comedic Predators as soon as Disney makes their film because we already got that movie.
I'm sure that Shane Black feels the same way as you do. Because if I remember clearly, I feel that there were extensive reshoots on that
Okay.
movie. So I don't think that that was his original take. And even when you watch the movie, you can kind of tell that it kind of feels like two different beasts in a way. Like the humor in some places does seem a little bit forced in. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I was just like you. I was really disappointed in the final product. But I guess I worry a lot that this is what to expect from franchise films nowadays. Everybody's so afraid to go against the grain of what the MCU has done so successfully that it really does kind of create this vacuum, and we're kind of like continue to be fed a lot of the same stuff over and over again. And it's I really dislike the fact that we can so easily pick it out in other franchises now.
It's really sad to see, but I guess if whoever's on the other side of this, if you enjoyed the Predator film, the last one, then you will probably enjoy whatever Disney has in store in the future. So best of luck, Shane Black, man. That still shocked the hell out of me. It is affecting the comic books too, though. Marvel Comics
Yeah.
recently delayed the Predator ongoing series as well, and also the Predator month variants after they were already solicited in previews. I had just put in my final order cutoff numbers, and this was 2 days after the delay had happened. So I was like, okay, so that main series is who knows when that's coming out. Are these variants still coming out? Let me put in numbers, and if we get them, we get them. And those got delayed too. So all of those numbers don't matter. I don't know when we're going to get this Predator comic. It probably won't be, if I had to guess, until next year, unless they settle this really quick. But surprisingly, the Alien book that I read from Marvel Comics, it does feel like a Dark Horse book. So it does still have the horror elements, which I was surprised about, especially since, I don't know if you saw these, but they did an Alien month variant, a set of variants that had Captain America fighting against a xenomorph and fucking Wolverine putting his claws through an alien's head, and I was just like, what the fuck? How the hell did
I
Disney
didn't see that.
be
But that
okay
is
with
pretty
this?
dope. That is pretty dope. And when we heard about the merger that was taking place, like for me, that was the thing that was the most confusing and the most interesting, as in how are they going to approach a lot of their properties, a lot of these Fox properties that don't fall in line with what Disney is typically known for. So just I haven't seen those variants, but hearing about it does sound like they were prepared to maybe dive into it like on the comic book side more than they would probably do on the film side. So that is pretty cool that they would use Wolverine and Captain America like that. That is pretty cool.
And I'm excited to see what they end up doing with more of the Predator variants when and if we get those again. One of the promotional pieces showed the Predator holding, it's like the skull and spine type, the classic pose of him holding him up, but it was Iron Man's robot spine and robot head. So it was kind of like the closest they can get away to a dead Tony Stark in the hands of a Predator hand. And that was another one that I'm like, holy shit, Disney's cool with this. All right. Or they're not watching or something.
Like this is like all I doubt that anything is happening behind their backs. They don't seem they don't seem to be the type to get surprised about anything.
Right, that's true.
Yeah. So maybe it's just a little bit more lax in the comic industry than it would be in their more well known, stomping ground.
Oh yeah, probably. I mean, they're not afraid of and I know this because I work at the shop, and they're not afraid of offending the MCU general audience because they're not in comic shops buying the book. You know, they have plenty of comic readers that go out and watch the movies, but that general audience is not rushing to comic stores to buy these comics.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, exactly. If you have the general audience the way that they have them, it really doesn't matter what you do on that side.
Someone else that is handling the Marvel properties, I think, really well, especially, they've been doing this for years, but lately with the Spider-Verse film, which was absolutely incredible, and that is Sony, who have announced its directors for the Spider-Verse 2 film. We were just discussing it last week right here on the show and how they dispelled the rumors of the 90s Spider-Man voice actor. He is not going to be in the film, or at least he said on Instagram that there's no negotiations going on. But the directors for Spider-Verse 2 are going to be Joaquim Dos Santos from Voltron Legendary Defender, Kemp Powers from Soul, and Justin K. Thompson from Star Wars The Clone Wars. How do you feel on these picks?
I got to say, this is a pretty solid team that they've put together. I agree with you. I think Into the Spider-Verse was a fantastic movie. It made me even sadder that, Sony is doing the rights share with Marvel and keeps giving us those horrible quote unquote Spider-Man movies.
Yeah.
I'm using quote unquote because they don't feel like Spider-Man movies to me. So seeing what they did with Into the Spider-Verse, I was really excited about that. And then, we knew it was going to be a new team to head this project. And it was a really pleasant, and it's a really great surprise to see this team put together. I'm really looking forward to this.
I am curious as to why the other directors did not return, or they didn't get those other directors to return. I know sometimes when a studio has a massive hit, they'll instead quote unquote upgrade to like more expensive talent. And I don't know if that was the case on this one, or if they were just kind of like, we did our film and that was it. But they kind of left it pretty open-ended to, if there's more, we're going to have more. There's that scene at the end with Gwen visiting Miles, and there's obviously some interconnect. So I'm not too sure why that happened. So that's the only thing that I'm a little bit worried about.
Yeah, but I mean, but Lord and Miller are still there as producers. They'll have their hand in it and help guide this thing, I'm sure. Amy Pascal is still going to be present, which is important. I think she's been a very big part of this revival of the Spider-Man franchise over there. And even one of the writers, I think, wrote an Amazon movie that's looked at as an Oscar contender. So all of that stuff sounds really promising to me, although it would have been great to get the original team back.
This is set to release on October 7th, 2022 still, and I am excited to jump in. Leo, he loves Spider-Man because of the Spider-Verse film. He likes Batman more, and that's what I tell myself. And I show him Batman, and I showed him the Snyder Cut. Little 3-year-old, I fast forwarded a scene or two, but I showed little Leo the Snyder Cut, and he loved it. He was watching Batman on there, so he likes Batman, and he likes Miles Morales Spider-Man. Those are his two favorite ones. So I'm excited to take him into theaters, hopefully in 2022, to watch this one.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I watched the Snyder Cut with my niece and nephew, and I was really proud of them. They just sat through the 4 hours like it was nothing. Nice. They were really into it. So I was really, really happy to see that. Nobody asked for a break. Nobody was like, "Can we finish this tomorrow?" We just we polished it off in one sitting, and I was really happy to see them be so into it, honestly.
Something else that is coming our way, and this is an adaptation of Resident Evil. Capcom and Netflix. We have a lot of Netflix news this week. They revealed a first look at its upcoming anime series. It's titled Resident Evil Infinite Darkness. It's going to focus primarily on Leon Kennedy and Claire Redfield. And the series director, Aichiro Hasumi, said, quote, "Being involved in a work with such a long history and so many fans gave me more joy than it did pressure. While this is a full CG anime, I strove to adjust the camera work and lighting atmosphere to resemble the live-action filming I usually do to instill this work with a sense of realism." End quote. Did you get a chance to check out the trailer?
I did, and I don't know if you know this about me, Dan, but I am a huge Resident Evil fan.
Nice.
Ever since I played the first game on my PlayStation way back in the late 90s, and I was filled with the fear of God, because again, I was still pretty young. I was way too young to be playing that game, I remember my dad took me to rent it at Blockbuster. Yes, because that was something you could do once upon a time, ladies and gentlemen.
Anyone under 20 is like, what the hell's a Blockbuster?
Exactly. Well, if they want to know, there is a documentary on Netflix called The Last Blockbuster. They should check it out.
That's right.
Yeah. So I remember I loaded the game. I had no idea what this game was about. I loaded it up, and I ended up in this creepy ass mansion being chased by zombies. So I've been a big supporter of the games, less of so of the movies because I feel like the movies have not been up to snuff.
Mm-hmm.
So when I saw this and I saw the trailer, I was really excited because the Resident Evil animation stuff is actually pretty great. There's a lot of great animation movies for Resident Evil. So seeing like a Netflix series in live action and this as well being made, I am really fucking happy with Netflix right now.
I couldn't exactly find
and that short teaser trailer looked awesome.
Yeah, it did look like it kind of fit alongside the other animated movies, but I don't know if they were connected because there was such a gap between this one and the last one that came out. I think there were 3 total before this. Do you know if they are connected or is this its own project?
Well, I really don't know because even in the trailer, all we're getting is Claire saying that this looks like Raccoon City without mentioning any of the other incidents that the two have faced in that time span. So it looks like maybe it is going to be its own thing, which I am all for. I'm all for because I think that could be a really interesting thing to see. So again, I don't know the details. I don't know if they're out there already, but I am definitely excited about this project.
Resident Evil 4 is my favorite game of all time. I played it so many times on the GameCube.
That's a good one.
It's so fucking good, man. It's that and then Star Fox 64 right underneath. The 2 games that have nothing to do with one another.
Star Fox, it's been a minute.
But when I go back and I remember Resident Evil 4 and they talk about protecting the president's daughter, and in this one they mention he seems to be in the White House or somewhere where he is high level. So I'm curious as to whether this takes place after Resident Evil 4 or even during, because at the beginning of Resident Evil 4, he's already a high-level agent for the country. So it kind of feels like it's right around that same era or that same period of time.
I hadn't thought about that, but you're definitely making a good point there. I hadn't thought about that. It's been a while since I played Resident Evil 4, but that's another awesome game.
I hope this also means that they add that other trilogy of animated movies onto Netflix when this does hit.
Yes.
That'd be good to just watch them all.
Yes, I agree. I hope that happens. I really do. I hope that happens too. I still think 2 is my favorite one.
With starring Leon also.
Yeah, with Leon and Claire, I think 2 is still my favorite Resident Evil content. Did
you play the remake that they recently released?
Yes.
I heard it was amazing.
It really fucking was. They changed like it's still what I love about it is that they were able to change the game to make it feel new and fresh while still like maintaining like the I guess the aura of the original. So that was so great for me because you kind of like reliving this like incredible video game, and it's like updated. All the graphics are incredible. The story stays pretty much the same, but it does take some detours, and there's a lot of fucking surprises along the way. So it was a great time playing it. I haven't played the Resident Evil 3 remake yet, though. It is on my list of things to do.
That's another one that I heard was really excellent. I don't even know if they've redone Resident Evil 4 yet, but it's had several re-releases throughout the years.
They have not done a big update yet, but I think that was the next one in the pipeline.
Well, I may have to jump right back in. I don't know. My skills won't be quite the same as they were. I don't really play as many games these days, but that might be one that I just buy to support, just to give my thanks to a game that gave me just hours and hours of gameplay many years ago. They did say...
Right, same here.
They did say that this Netflix anime series is separate from the planned live-action series that Netflix is also coming out with. Are you a little bit more apprehensive on a live-action one as opposed to this anime one, or do you feel like Netflix has its ducks in a row?
I think maybe it's a show of confidence. Maybe they are really happy with how the live action one is looking, that they were ready to greenlight this animated version as well. But it's also what we're seeing them do with Zack Snyder's Army of the Dead, that we're going to talk about in a little bit as well. They greenlit his film and they did it, and now there's like a prequel movie. There's a anime for that as well. So it kind of seems like this is really kind of the road that they're on now. That this is kind of trying to build up a lot of these series and this like content for themselves.
And there's a lot of great stuff coming to Netflix in May. So let's jump ahead to our highlights of this month's What's New on Netflix. These are just a summary list of something that I pulled together, things that I know we can probably have some good discussion on. But for a full list on on Google, type in What's New on Netflix May 2021, and there's all kinds of websites that will outline that for you. But the ones that I pulled for next month: Jupiter's Legacy, which is season 1 based on Mark Millar's comic book series; Castlevania season 4, which they're saying is probably the final season; The Woman in the Window, starring the great Amy Adams; and Lucifer season 5B, which I know Paul Kelly is really looking forward to; and finally, Zack Snyder's Army of the Dead. Where do you want to start on this list?
Let's start with Jupiter's Legacy.
Yeah, this is one that, I don't know if do you know about Mark Millar's comic giant contract with Netflix?
Yeah, I remember when it was announced. So, it's an interesting deal, all things considered.
I haven't seen the trailer to it, but I'm just excited that Mark Millar is getting all of this work and that exclusivity deal with Netflix. I know some people the readership complains when independent books are now being written and drawn. Some of them are being drawn and written so that they can then be pitched to studios and TV networks, and as opposed to being a great comic book first that later gets adapted. But I know Jupiter's Legacy was not written in mind of, okay, let's make this into a TV show later on. His current projects do have that Netflix logo on the back, so that writing is naturally going to change. But if you do enjoy Netflix's comic book adaptations, I think The Umbrella Academy is probably one of their biggest hits. Lock and Key is on there too. Then I would recommend trying out Jupiter's Legacy.
Yeah, I had the chance to see the trailer and I really liked it a lot. I thought that it looked great. It had a great tone. I wish that I would have gotten a better look so you could talk about the costumes, but it's a show, so you'll get plenty of chance to do that. And I am looking forward to it. I am enjoying a lot of the stuff we're seeing from comic books on TV are attempting to kind of approach the material in a different manner. So that's really exciting and interesting to me. Have you checked out Amazon's Invincible by Robert Kirkman?
No, I don't mess around with Amazon because they're my direct competitor as a
True.
comic shop guy. But I do like that it's selling. I do like that people are coming in. They're like, I like that cartoon. Do you have the comic? Yes, I do. I've got all of them here, and they'll buy it up.
Yeah. Funny enough, Millennial Mike is the one that had put me on to Invincible. I think sometime last year, and I was able to get some of the comics and read through it. And I'm really excited. And yeah, the show is actually really good. So I am glad that it is translating and people are going to go get the comic and reading it, because I think that the comic is very strong for Invincible. And that's really the kind of content that I want to see more of when we're talking about comic book adaptations. Like something that's, more, a little bit more, feeds the darker tones of my tongue,
Mm-hmm. And Invincible is kind of coming out at a perfect time because I remember, I read the first trade and it does deconstruct the typical superhero trope of a teenager who gets these powers or is growing into attaining these powers from his dad, from his family. And it kind of turns it all on its head. It's like, okay, you understand all of these concepts, but we're not going down that road. Instead, we're doing this. Yeah. And I'm assuming the show does the same.
Yeah, exactly the same. And, and one of the best parts of the show was the shot that it took a shot at one-liners, which so these are just not good at all. And again, yeah, it does play with with the tropes, but it does it in a very interesting and funny way, and sometimes incredibly dramatic ways as well. Like when you find out, I don't want to talk about spoilers, but there's like really big reveal that takes place very early on.
Mhm.
It takes place at the end of the first episode in the show. I don't know how early on it takes place in the comics, but I think it was equally pretty early, and it kind of like lets you know that, oh, this is not, your typical MCU thing. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to his legacy. It looks like it's gonna follow what I saw from the trailer.
Castlevania, I had sort of jumped out of after the first 5 episodes or so. It wasn't really for me, but apparently people have been enjoying it enough to get 3 other seasons out of it. Is that one that you were following at all?
No, I haven't followed Castlevania, but everyone that I know that has talked to my ear off about this show has loved it. So I'm sure you're in good company, man.
And Amy Adams in Woman in the Window, from what I understand, this was supposed to come out in theaters first, and it got
Yeah.
completely delayed several times. And now I think
COVID.
it's
Thank
one
you
of
very
those,
much, COVID.
right. It's one of those projects that Netflix ended up swooping in and going, okay, how much to get this exclusively on our thing? All right, kind of like they were trying to do with Godzilla vs. Kong.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
saw
exactly.
trailer
I'm really
looks
looking
incredible.
forward to that. Yeah, it does. It really does. I'm really looking forward to seeing it. I'm into anything that Amy Adams does. She owns me and my wallet.
Yep.
So, so I'm really. I was looking forward to this. I was gonna go see it in theaters. We'll take Netflix, but I am looking forward to that one a lot as well.
Well, hopefully they do a limited theatrical run, especially if it ends up being maybe an Oscar contender. Exactly right. Exactly right. What was the one that just came out? I think it was on Netflix too, with Glenn Close and Amy Adams.
I know the movie you're talking about. I can't remember the name right off the top right now, but I know what you're talking about.
But that's one they put in theaters, I think, as well.
Something eulogy. I think it's no.
Oh man, yeah, that kind of it's sounds close to it. Hillbilly elegy or elegy.
There you go. Elegy.
That's what it is.
I don't. Yeah, I don't know how close I was.
That reminded me, though. We got there. We got there.
It was a team effort.
That's right. And of course, the biggest one here on this list, this is going to be a monster for Netflix. You can see it with the view counts on the trailer, on the tweets. They got the Snyder Cut movement to push behind it because we're Zack Snyder fans. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter if, we've enjoyed more than Man of Steel, BVS, and the Snyder Cut. We've enjoyed 300, Watchmen, Sucker Punch, and Army of the Dead is the next one that we are there to support. We're happy for Zack and his crew and his friends and family that he's able to bring along. And that one, I think, is going to be their largest addition on Netflix next month. Probably one of their biggest films of the year.
I agree. And I love how we buried the lead on that one, leaving it for last.
Well, that's the thing. It's got its own discussion here. We got a whole trailer with it.
Yeah. The trailer came out last week, I think, right? And it was awesome. It was a little shocking to see Zack using digital, but it still looks really fucking good. It looks great. The movie looks great. It looks like it's going to be very tongue in cheek, very, very. And I just like the whole idea of it is very. It's like zombies with a twist, and I really enjoy that whole concept. I had heard before, I think sometime last year, that I don't remember from where I had read it. I had read that he was going in there to save his daughter that was trapped there, and he was trying to pull her out before they blew the whole thing. But I guess that was just poor information. But the trailer was great. I really like the concept of it. There's some great shots, and Zombie Tiger.
Yeah.
Zombie Tiger. That and just I just want to add. I think my favorite part of the trailer was seeing the zombies being organized, and it seemed like they had some kind of organization, which makes them even more dangerous.
It really does. And I got some sort of I Am Legend vibes with the way that they were moving and organizing and all of that. But, this is going to be on a whole different level with Zack on it. And did you see that Deborah confirmed that the zombie tiger is Carol Baskins from Tiger King?
Really? No, I hadn't seen that. That's so awesome. I love it.
She did, and now everyone's speculating on, since it's all Netflix anyway, are we gonna see the Tiger King? Are we gonna see a zombie Carol Baskin? Just fucking do it.
Is Joe still in jail?
Yeah, he is. There's people trying to get him out. Like,
I remember that.
That's one of those things that was. Like Kelly and I were watching this whole thing and we're like, oh, come on, let him out. It's like, and Kelly's like, well, he's a terrible fucking person. I'm like, yeah, but he's compared to everyone else. He's the funniest. Just let him go.
No, I remember because that was the early days of the pandemic.
Yeah. It got us through it.
It hit at the perfect time. It hit like this groundswell. Everybody was home and we all just watched Tiger King. And honestly, I don't think I was with you. I don't think I was like, they gotta let him out. I don't think I was there. Especially when you watch the reunion special and like everybody was just shitting on him the whole time. I was like, oh, this is very different from what we've been hearing so far.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of alone on that one. But I'm also the same guy that
I'm sure you're in good company again, Dan. I'm sure this.
Yeah, probably the same people that found Steppenwolf charming, and that's another one that I'm like, come on, League. Just even now when I watch the Snyder Cut, I'm like, when Superman's beating the shit out of him, I'm like, he's done. He's already defeated. Stop hitting him. Aquaman.
Honestly, I've been surprised. I've been surprised at the number of people I've heard. The number of people I've heard say that. Honestly, like a lot of people are just like, Steppenwolf deserved better.
Yes, he did.
And I'm like, this dude was an absolute dick to Diana every chance he had. Like every chance that he had to talk to her one-on-one, he took that moment to tell her, oh, I killed your sisters. You weren't able to save nobody. I think he got what he deserved.
I think he should have just let him go home. That's what I think.
I mean, he went home.
Yeah, people keep telling me that. They're like, look, there he is home. And I'm like, not like that, though. 50,000 worlds and shit. I'm like, fuck you, Desaad.
He was not. I'll tell you, when I heard that in the Snyder Cut, I was like, 50,000 worlds? Like, does anybody just stop to think about how much work that is? 50,000 worlds?
It's insane.
Yeah, they never wanted him back. That was their way of telling him that.
Well, Desaad. Well, let's not speak for Darkseid. We know for sure Desaad didn't want him there, but maybe Darkseid. I don't know. Like, I think Desaad's the real villain here. That's what I'm trying to say.
You know what? I hope that we get to restore the Snyderverse and get to see more of Desaad just being an absolute dick.
Yeah, well, hopefully. Before we go into the final news topic this week, which is Snyderverse related. Army of the Dead will begin streaming on May 21st, exclusively on Netflix. It will have select theatrical, I don't even know what your screenings on May 14th, which is great. And hopefully they play it in the Orlando area so I can try to catch one of those. I always rather watch things on the big screen, but that's just how I grew up.
Yeah, same here. And I hope that, we get it here as well in the DC area, just because I just miss going to the movies. I haven't been to the movies in a year. The last movie I saw in theaters was Ben Affleck's The Way Back. So,
nice,
yeah. So it would be really nice to go back to the theater, and for the movie to take me back would be a Zack Snyder movie. That would just, make it all worthwhile.
And there's also the Army of the Dead anime that we're going to get, I believe, this year as well. So it sounds like the Army of the Dead universe is something that Netflix very much values. They know what they have in Zack Snyder. And if he ends up doing more projects for them, whether or not we end up getting more DC or not, I'm just glad that at least it sounds like Zack is secured somewhere. And Netflix is one of those places.
Yeah, I'm happy about that too. And I also heard him mention that he's going to be shooting Horse Latitudes next. which is what was it called before? It was called The Photograph before. So there was a lot of talk about that project, and it's good to finally see that it's going to get shot.
Do you know who that's going to go through?
I have no idea who's that going to go through. I don't know who's starring in it, but I just heard him say that that would be the next thing that he shoots would be Horse Latitudes.
Okay, awesome.
What is this? It's a goddamn zombie tiger. That's crossing the line.
Well, let's talk about, you had mentioned Restore the Snyderverse and the Snyder Cut. We've already been kind of dying to talk about it a little bit here. Something that, we've all been fighting for many years, and it's here, and now we're trying to get more, right? And trying to get there.
They warned them that this is what we would do.
Oh yeah, of course. Anyone that acted surprised was not paying attention.
Yeah, they were going to give them this one movie and then they'll be fine.
Well, Zack Snyder confirmed last week that Wayne T. Carr filmed his scene to play Green Lantern John Stewart in his Snyder Cut. And as we saw in the movie, spoilers in case you, for some reason, haven't seen it, but if you haven't, shame on you. It was instead Martian Manhunter that was used in the epilogue scene. And the WB would not let him use Jon Stewart because they supposedly have plans for the character in other projects and some kind of, maybe it's the HBO Max Lantern show. I'm not too sure, but they wouldn't let him use Jon Stewart. Zack ended up relenting on that one because he said, like, if this is the one thing, then I'm just gonna, all right, that's fine. I'm doing everything else otherwise. Stewart would have appeared to Bruce at the very end of the film. So I believe there's two different scenes of that epilogue of there's a rumor that Bruce, they filmed Ben Affleck with like a green light in front of him, and they weren't able to clean that up, so that's why they had to reshoot that for the Snyder Cut, which released, and that's why there's also like that. You can tell Ben does look more like today's Ben Affleck rather than what they shot. What was it, 2015, 2016?
Yeah, 2016. Yeah.
Okay.
So I have, I told you before we started recording, I haven't really been like up to, been keeping up with all the going on. So when I got the show notes, it was the first time I heard of this. And tell me if I'm right, but so he filmed his scene back when they were shooting in 2016. So in the original cut, it was supposed to be him.
So that's the rumor I had heard, but they shot the scenes with Wayne during the pandemic, is what Zack was revealed also last week. So I don't know how true it is that Ben Affleck, that there's older footage of, and Zack hasn't said yet, because I from what I remember, the original like even going back several years, it was meant to be Kilowog and Tomar Ray in that.
Yes, I remember that. Yeah.
Right. So it's very possible that they shot that scene and then later they were going to do who was on the other side of it. But the scene with Jon Stewart, at least, was done last year, which they also did with Lennox on Martian Manhunter after they couldn't use that footage. So there is footage already of a Wayne Jon Stewart somewhere that he could not release. Okay.
I honestly would have really, really, really liked Jon Stewart to show up at the end. I just feel like Warner Brothers was worried about what it would mean for them, going forward, because this, Jon Stewart popping up at the end of the Snyder Cut, that again just completely opens up the world, that universe, in a way that hasn't really been done in live action films as of yet. So I really wish they would have gone for it. I wish they would have let him do it, and I think that it would have worked out perfectly. I do still like the scene with Martian Manhunter at the end. I think it's a good, strong scene. I really like Lennox's voice, and I do like the Martian Manhunter design. But even with that said, I still think that I would have preferred it being a Green Lantern that pops up at Bruce's house at the end. Mostly because we already know that Martian Manhunter is in the world because we had the scene with Martha and Lois. So, like, ending the movie on the appearance of a Green Lantern, I feel would have just made everything much stronger. So, I really feel like WB messed up on not letting him go through with that.
Especially when we had that setup of the history lesson. We got a Green Lantern there. We saw Kilowog in the Nightmare vision, and that would have been a great payoff. And that was one thing that when I did the discussion of the Snyder Cut a few weeks back, I was like, that's one thing that I was disappointed by, but that was on me because I had that expectation of, okay, we're going to get a Green Lantern at the end. And that wasn't necessarily the Snyder Cut's fault, but it was more me, after hearing all these rumors of, okay, we're going to get that lake house scene. And then we didn't quite get it like how it was rumored.
Yeah, exactly. Which is, it's happened before. Remember when Jenna Malone was supposed to be Batgirl?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, I remember that.
So we've been through it. So I definitely see what you're saying. And again, it's like, I love Green Lantern. I love Jon Stewart Green Lantern as well. And I just think that it would have been a great way of ending this film. Like, with you get a Green Lantern in the history lesson, and you get one right before Darkseid's Armada beginning to make its way towards Earth. Even it's kind of interesting. Did you read those storyboards that were released a few months back? Before, maybe not even a few months, but before the cut was released.
Yeah, I did. And I guess they're saying they're not necessarily, Zach was saying it's not spoilers anymore because the story has progressed since then.
Yeah, obviously it has. Like, there are things that are already different from then that we've seen in this cut, that we've seen in other, and even in from BVS, there's definitely places where it's changed. And honestly, I feel like, the way that Hal Jordan was introduced there is really cool. And I kind of liked how Hal Jordan appeared there. And it was I think that was supposed to take place in GL3, which was after the Green Lantern Corps movie was supposed to come out. So clearly, Zack had big plans for the Green Lanterns in his universe. And honestly, a Zack Snyder directed or written Green Lantern movie Corps would have been amazing.
Every world that he handles, you saw him do it with the Atlanteans, you see him do it with the Amazons and Kryptonians, and it's just, he can handle all of these worlds and do them so well, and each have their own pillar and own feel in one film, even, or in and even
still all fit together really well. Yeah. Like, that's the great thing. Like, it's just like, it's really great to see how different Themyscira and underwater looks, but still it all be part of the same universe. Like, that takes a certain kind of individual to be able to knock it out of the park time and time again.
Hopefully we will see that. Do you think he's going to leak the scene? He's just going to put it out there at some time in the future?
Maybe. I mean, I do think that there is an air of Zack trying to play ball with the studio to an extent. So he might not do it just in the hopes of not burning that bridge. So maybe not. Like, maybe like somewhere down the road, because maybe he's still hoping that he can slide him into jail 2 or 3 if he gets to make it.
Well, hopefully we will at some point. He was asked whether or not the suit was physically made for Carr, and he said, quote, "We had made him a CG suit, and because it was COVID and we couldn't really do a real suit, the mandate was to make it look as physical as possible," end quote. And in that same interview, he had said, like, if we're able to do one in the future, then we can then do a physical suit that would look like what they had tried to do in the CGI version. So that's kind of exciting because, even when you see it with the Kryptonians in Man of Steel 2, it won't be CG suit like in the Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern. You can see that the technology they use or whatever studio they use can make it look like they're actually wearing that armor or that suit.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I was going to ask you, did you take the time to look up Wayne T. Carr and check out his IMDb stats and stuff like that?
I saw he was known for, what was it? Because Ray Fisher had introduced Zack to him, or introduced him to Zack.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that part.
And I think it's from their theater background because he does come from that world as well.
Ah, okay.
But no, what'd you find?
No, I just found that he actually, and the Ray Fisher part does make a lot of sense because just like Ray Fisher, he's quite unknown with very few credits to his name. I mean, he's done a few things. I think probably the biggest thing he's done on that list was he was on SWAT, the TV show on CBS. I do think that was the biggest thing that he's known for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So again, I kind of like. It kind of again goes to Zach's casting. He's going out there and he's like getting guys that are not necessarily the most known name, but that they will be able to capture the character in the way that he knows that he needs it for his film to work. So he did it with Ray Fisher, who I think Justice League was his first Hollywood credit at the time. And to see him do it here again with Wayne T. Carr is, again, it's a testament to Zach.
Did you happen to see the concept art that had him wearing the Green Lantern suit?
No, I didn't see it actually.
It's pretty cool. It's comic accurate. It looks like, it's got the lanterns popping out of the chest like they do in the pre-New 52 comic books, and it's the same concept artist that did Granny Goodness and I believe Darkseid as well, but definitely Nightmare Joker was in their list of concept pieces, and they were able to reveal that now that we know that Jon Stewart was originally meant for that scene in the Snyder Cut.
Yeah. What did you think of the look of Martian Manhunter?
It looked like it fit in that universe. It's comic accurate as well. He's got the cape, he's got the red X, and it does look like it was, I don't know if it was Patrick Tatopoulos that designed them too, but it looks like it fits in that same world that with Doomsday and Darkseid and everyone else.
I agree. I think it fit very well with the rest of the world. And again, that's a testament to that crew.
Mm-hmm. And you can even see a little bit of Lennox underneath there too. It's not like it's a complete transformation, and I'm sure a part of that is the face capture that they used on him. But I'm glad that they didn't, then change it so much to where you couldn't recognize that it's still him under there.
I agree. You could definitely still say that. Yeah, that's the actor. Mm-hmm. And again, it adds to the performance, and it adds especially because we have seen Lennox in Man of Steel and BVS, so it does add like an extra layer to things to see him in the Martian Manhunter suit.
Well, as we're talking about the potential future of the Snyderverse, you asked me a few years ago, do you think we're going to get the Snyder Cut? Do you think they're going to release it? So I'll ask you this time, do you think that we're going to restore the Snyderverse? Are we going to release Justice League 2 and 3?
Oh, damn. This wasn't in the notes. I wasn't prepared.
That's how I felt a few years ago.
Honestly, like for me, the hard part is the logistical aspect of it all. If we restore the Snyderverse, what does that mean for all the other things that they have planned during the past few years? What does that mean for Gal, who I think a Wonder Woman 3 movie was already greenlit? What happens to Jason when they already greenlit an Aquaman 2? What happens to the Flashpoint movie that they are going to make no matter what? What happens to just like is this going to be the main continuity? Is it going to be Elseworld stories? Are they going to let Zack still have carte blanche? Is it going to be in theaters? Is it just going to be on HBO Max? I feel like Warner Brothers is in a very tough position now. Mm-hmm. Before it was it's just a bunch of people out on the internet that want the Snyder Cut. It's no longer the case.
Right.
We've seen so many different people from so many different backgrounds come out and ask for the cut, ask for the restoration of the verse. So again, they can't just, I think that if people continue to ask for it and that there's a continued demand like there was for the cut, that they are going to have to think and talk and look into how to make this possible. But again, it's money out of their pocket if they don't either.
Mm-hmm.
because I think that there's no denying that the Snyder Cut was a huge success.
That's something that
I don't. Yeah, go ahead.
that's something that Vega and I were talking about. Of they have complicated things very much for Warner Brothers by making this the success that it is, and I'm still in that weird camp of Warner Brothers will deny and not support this in any way, but it sounds like from what you're saying, you feel more like it's them trying to just figure things out as opposed to stamping out the fire.
I think so, because again, there's a lot of moving pieces to this stuff. There's
Right.
a lot of there's a lot of moving pieces, and there's going to be some tough decisions to be made. Millennial Mike loves to say it's got to like Mike. I think Mike believes that it has to be the Snyderverse or the stuff that they were already working on. Like it has to be one or the other. I disagree. I think that they can both coexist to an extent.
Mm-hmm.
They can both coexist, I believe, but I don't know if Warner Brothers has faith in the audience to be able to accept, two different Batmans at the same time. And I think that, even Flashpoint, where we had heard that, Michael Keaton was going to be a part of it. Now we don't, like the last I read, he said he wasn't sure yet, depending on how things are going to pan out with COVID. So there's just, again, so much unknown. There's so many moving pieces to this. And I think that it is a fluid situation, that even if you ask the execs at Warner Brothers today, they wouldn't, they're not exactly sure what's the next step to take here, because it is a complicated mess, not to mention Ray Fisher's continued push against Walter Hamada, Toby Emmerich, who are still decision makers over at Warner Brothers. How does that play into things? So again, I wish that I could just be like, yeah, they're going to do it, but there's just so many things here that we just don't know.
And I think that's one of the reasons why they haven't said anything at all one way or the other. Yeah. I mean, well, Sarnoff did say something, but that was an interview that was before the Snyder Cut actually released. Yes. And a lot of people were hoping, especially on Twitter, and I'm one of the ones that are also pushed, like, hashtag restore the Snyderverse, but a lot of people I think are thinking that, right off the bat, as soon as it's a success, which it is, that they're going to go, okay, well, we're going to restore the Snyderverse, and here's Justice League 2 and 3. But in reality, it's not going to be that quick. They're hoping for the April 23rd, I want to say, earnings for AT&T. And, some people are saying that maybe they'll announce it there. I don't think so either. I think it's going to, because of all of those things that you had mentioned, of contracts need to be in place. How do they want to move forward with these characters and these other films? Is it just an HBO project, or there's so many things that they clearly did not think of ahead of time of, well, if it is a success, then let's do this. They were just taking it as it comes. And it is a best case scenario, I think, for the fan base, for Zack, and for anyone that wants to see more of these, because as you mentioned, the general audience is for it. The critics and bloggers, oddly enough, liked it as well, and that's something that was the most surprising thing. Yeah, I thought they were going to torpedo it.
Same here. I'm still not sure what happened there. I was shocked. I think I'm still a little bit unnerved by all of the pleasantness that they talked about.
Mm-hmm. And that's something that when Gio was on the show, he was like, how does the movement capture the general audience? How does, we know that the Snyder Cut fans are going to go and watch it, but how do we get everyone else? And I don't know what did it. I don't know how it happened. I still don't know. Maybe you have, your guess or an answer to it, but I work at a comic shop, and I have moms coming in when I'm playing the Snyder Cut on the TV, and they're like, oh, I can't, this one was way better than the other one. And just the general audience, they all saw it. People of all ages watched it. They all, in some form, got to see it with weeks of the thing's release.
Yeah, and I think, honestly, it's an interesting look into Warner Brothers and how and still how far behind the ball they seem to be. It almost seems to me as though they didn't expect this thing to be as successful as it was. It almost feels like they expected it to not do well, and then they could move on from it. And now they've been placed in this position where they have people, the ones that were there from day one, asking for more, and they have a host of new fans that are also asking for this thing to continue. And my biggest thing is, if it does stay an HBO Max project, can it like financially support itself? Because we were just talking about how Zach got these unknown actors in Ray Fisher and in Carr to play big important characters, but he also has Henry Cavill, Gal Gadot, Jason Momoa, Ben Affleck, and Jeremy Irons also, I would imagine, that do not come cheap.
Mm-mm.
So again, it's going to force us to think about the financial ramifications of streaming if it does bring in enough financial incentive to support and go 100% all out on more Snyderverse.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that the easy solution to this problem is it has to kind of what they're doing now, release it in theaters as well, but maybe like just a quicker release on HBO Max. So I just it's like the logistics are crazy to think about.
Hopefully we'll have better footing at some point later this year, and I think we've all been saying and thinking that as soon as Zach himself says, no, this is it, it's over, until then, everyone's going to keep pushing. And even he has said, I don't think we're going to get more, but I'm open to it. And,
I still feel like a lot of that was it was like agreed upon between the two parties beforehand. We'll let you do this thing, but you can't go out there. I mean, because my whole thing is like they not only did they let him go shoot more stuff, they gave him more money to shoot an ending. Like all that stuff we saw all that stuff that we saw towards the end of the movie in the epilogue was shot afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
They gave him the financial backing to do that. So again, like why do that and then stifle more of the vision? It just doesn't add up to me.
Well, that's always what I think is hilarious about what he's been saying with that additional photography is he did everything that the studio did not want him to do. And when he said that, I'm guessing that they were like, okay, wrap up your universe. And he was like, well, I'm just going to finish what I wanted to do originally, which happens to contain setups for future movies. So it's my original vision. I'm not going to change. And that's what he said too. I forget which interview he was on or podcast. Might have been with Grace, but he said, I'm not going to change the ending where it would have led to more Justice Leagues because now I'm changing my original vision. So that's one of the things that even though the studio wanted him to wrap things up, he's like, well, I still got to do it the way I wanted to do it though.
Yeah. And again, like we love Zack as a filmmaker, but we oftentimes forget to discuss how shrewd of a businessman he is as well. And I think that's what we're seeing here. We're seeing the shrewd businessman Zack. And I think that if you pay close attention to the decisions and the choices and the way that he has shown up over the last couple of years surrounding the movement and restore the Snyderverse, I think that you can see it there too, that he understands the power that this fandom gives him, and he's going to use it to his discretion to get as much leverage as he can. And I think that having these new fans be on top of this as well is only going to do wonders for him in the future. And that's like way beyond the DC stuff. I'm really interested to see the numbers for Army. Like, is this like the people that love Justice League, will they rush to see Army of the Dead as well?
It's going to be really, really interesting what happens between Netflix, Warner Brothers, HBO Max, and everyone else that Zack is involved with. because it's nothing but success lately, especially, and Army of the Dead is you can already call it a success. There's no way that all of us are not going to go to flock to Netflix and make this a huge hit for both Netflix and Zack and everyone else involved. And it's really interesting. And I'm again really pleased and happy that, that at the very least, it's unfortunate that all of these events led to this, but that at the very least it ended up being a success and something that Zack seems to be pretty happy with right now.
So you got to ask me a question. So I want to ask you one too. So we've been talking about like how surprised we've been about the wave of positivity and how well the Snyder Cut has been received, and I wonder if that is because of the time that has passed since BVS. So I'm saying, like, if this same movie, well, it obviously wouldn't have been 4 hours if Zack's Vision had been released back in 2017. It wouldn't have been like the 4 hour monster that we got, but it would have been more Zack. I still think that movie would have been. I feel that movie wouldn't have been received as well as this Justice League has, because we are living in a world post Endgame that the MCU's big storyline is over, and it is no longer, and like Zack's Vision is no longer a direct competitor to that anymore.
I think that's exactly it. That's exactly the key, because right now these MCU fans are looking for that other thing, and I hear it all the time too with them when they're like, all these things are coming out, and Black Widow and these shows, but they're not hyped for those things as they were pre-Endgame. You're absolutely right. That's what's changed it, and now they have this other universe and these others. They're still into superheroes, but they have this other side, and they're like, oh, cool, that's leading into its own thing and its own vision and its own big event and huge story, and it's a story that is larger than what they did in Endgame, from what I've heard, and so, because the Darkseid is a villain. Thanos, I don't think, is a multiverse guy, right? In their universe,
I don't think so, but I wouldn't be. I don't think he is. I don't think he's as. What's the right word to describe Darkseid? Because I think Darkseid is pretty like his what's the right word? His impact on the DC universe as a whole does seem to weigh far heavier than Thanos is in the MCU.
Right, and even in the film itself, in the Snyder Cut, they mention that he comes from another universe. So this is, if it's like the comics version, there's one Darkseid in all of the different universes and multiverses. There's one version, and that's the one that, at least in the New 52, he went around and killed all these different Supermen from these different universes. So that's something that they at least made clear in this one, and they said that he comes from a different universe. So we know that this is someone who is larger than what they set up over there on Disney's side. And you nailed it. I think that's exactly why the general audience took so positively to this movie. And I think you're right. If this had come out a few years ago, we would have been defending it left and right, just like, the other films in this set of continuity. And that absolutely would have happened.
Yeah, and I think you can also see that in the way that that we're seeing a lot of people's mind change about Batman v Superman and Man of Steel, for example. I think that also shows that there is a definite shift in the way that Snyder and his talent and his vision and his work has been perceived in the last few years.
Well, the problem is they kept comparing those movies to what was going on at the time in the MCU. Yeah. That's why all that shit kept coming out of, it needs to be lighter, needs to be more like this. Why aren't they building up their own universe? But now that they see that this is it was carving its own path, I think they're kind of realizing, okay, so there's no direct comparison right now, so it can be enjoyed on its own without them in their head needing to justify it with that other thing that is huge and, building up to, at the time, Infinity War and Endgame. But now they can just enjoy them as they are and kind of see that these are movies that do stand the test of time.
Yeah, definitely. I absolutely agree with that. Like, it's been really interesting to see these things, this like that part play out online. You know, just to see people be open minded enough to go back and to revisit these movies and you know, maybe not love them as much as we did, but kind of begin to understand why, you know, it was so important for us that the Snyder Cut was released.
And that's one of those things where I'm totally grateful for that shift or that change. And I know some have called it like bandwagoners, but I'm like, you know what? It doesn't matter because that helps the future of Justice League 2 and 2. Come on in, you know, that kind of thing. This is what we wanted. We wanted that support.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like I'm one of those who like, yeah, it would have been nice if you guys had been open-minded enough back in 2016. I feel that, and not just for Snyderverse. I think again, this might be me looking too much into it, but I do believe that what happened to Batman v Superman did affect Hollywood in a very big way. Like we just talked about Predator just a minute ago and about how that movie turned out. Would they have been so adamant to make that movie lighter if what had happened to Batman Superman hadn't happened? I felt like for many years, when we're talking about franchises, all the studios were being very careful about what they were putting out. And because anything that didn't fit a certain mold got blasted in the very same way that BVS did. Maybe not as bad, but very similar. So I do sometimes wonder if things had been different back then, how it would have impacted the entire industry as a whole.
It would have been a very different industry. I think you're absolutely right. We just saw it with Wonder Woman 1984. We saw it with Godzilla vs. Kong. Holy shit. I think we're about to see it with Mortal Kombat, and I hate to be pessimistic, but it's like, look, we got, you know, I'm just seeing these past couple of WB films that are franchises. I'm like, I don't know. I don't have all the confidence in the world in these things. Ed Boon isn't even supporting it on Twitter or Instagram. So
he has not at all. Yeah, from what I've seen, that was kind of shocking to me, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, think about that. Just that concept of, let's say, you know, you had created a video game many years ago and now they're making a feature film out of it and something happened there that you go, I'm not even going to support it, you know, and I'm sure there's money.
But I'm going to support the Snyder Cut.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and he's talking about Injustice. He's talking about the Snyder. It's amazing to me.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm glad to see that. I think that you and I are on the same page when it comes to Godzilla v. Kong.
Yeah, it was, man, I did not like that fucking movie. And people are like, you're just mad because of Kong. And I'm like, look, I was Team Kong, but that doesn't matter. The whole fucking thing, Jesus, like it was cut down. There's scenes that didn't make fucking sense. It felt like there's a 3 or 4 hour cut of this thing. What the fuck happened? It was originally going to be 2 more films. And they instead, after King of the Monsters underperformed, they're like, all right, let's just cap it off with this last one.
I don't know, man. I was just, I was confused watching this movie, but I shouldn't have been. We heard some of the things that they were already talking about changing up to ensure that this movie was going to be a hit after, you're right, after King of the Monsters underperformed. And I like King of the Monsters.
Me too.
I like the first guy. I like Godzilla 2014. I think that movie is really underrated. I like Kong Skull Island. This is honestly, it was the weakest out of the 4. And again, like you said, it's hard to have confidence in these decision makers when time and time again they have let us down.
And I just think it's funny that, and I admire it, but that movement of, you know, let's get more Monsterverse, let's get more of that. It's like, where were all of these people during King of the Monsters? Because that's the reason why, you know, this isn't 2 more movies now. It's only the 1, and it's why we got what we got.
I absolutely agree. I really do. And I think that for the general audience, they don't see it the way that we do. Like, because we get to see the cause and effect because of how closely we pay attention to things. But, you know, when you're just going to the movies, when the movie comes out, when the trailer has, like, when your first introduction, like, when was the last time that your introduction to a movie was a trailer?
I mean, maybe just the smallest, like the stuff that comes out of left field, right? Yeah, I think that'd be.
Yeah. But besides that, like, before a movie comes out, before you even see the trailer, we already have a bunch of information about it. We've seen stills. We know who's casting them. So a lot of the general audience, they just see the end product. We see like everything that leads up to it.
Hmm.
So like it's always a very different experience for us, and I think that that's one of the reasons why they weren't there when King of the Monsters happened, because it's like it's always later on for them because they're not as keyed into things as we are.
I hope I'm wrong about Mortal Kombat, but we will find out soon. It comes out in a little bit.
You're probably not. You're probably not, because because a birthmark is a mark that you were born with. It's just it just does not place a lot of confidence.
Yeah,
but Sub-Zero stabbing Scorpion with his own blood, that was pretty dope, though, I gotta say.
Yeah, Sub-Zero's my favorite one too. So I'm like, all right, he's the villain. Cool, let's do this.
Yeah, I really hope that they do a lot of cool shit with his powers. But we'll see. But I feel the same way as you do. These decision makers have continued to let us down in the last few years. It's really hard to think of something that they've done that's really hit it out the park. I don't understand the vote of confidence that Walter Hamada has.
Yeah.
Because everything that he's done since he's been in that position has been lackluster. Again, we don't know everything. Maybe the Suicide Squad and the Batman are just incredible movies that are gonna shake the very foundation of the industry. Maybe. I wouldn't hold my breath.
Well, I'm not seeing them. That they're not for me. But if people like them, great. But I'm gonna hold off. I'm gonna see what happens over here instead with the Snyderverse. I'm not excited for any of those movies right now.
That's perfectly fine.
Mm-hmm.
Because I say that because I'm in the same boat.
You're like, it's more than perfectly fine. It's great.
Yeah, because I'm not excited either.
But it's exactly what like we've been saying though over the last couple of weeks. If you want to see it, great. I'm not saying those need to be canceled or anything. I'm just going to vote with my dollar, and that's all I can do.
Exactly, it's all you can do. You vote with your dollar and what you choose to stream.
Absolutely right. Manu, this has been awesome discussing film and the news this week. It's been something that I've been looking forward to ever since I put up the little Twitter graphic of, this is a group that I would love to have on the show, and for you to come back on has been huge for me, especially, and someone that has been following the film Exiles and fighting alongside for the Snyder Cut over the last couple of years, and had the pleasure of having you been on the show too. This has been really special for me, especially. So I want to thank you again for coming on, and I want you to let the Brokehead Core member on the other side know where they can find you and what projects you're currently working on.
Well, if they're looking for me, they can find me at ManUnited0710 on Twitter. Current projects, right now, I'm not really working on anything. But that can change at any time. I think I'm just enjoying the post Snyder Cut glow, and I'm being lazy. It was a hectic few years. I think I've earned a break. Mm-hmm. I think we all have.
Yeah, it absolutely.
I think we all have, and I'm thank you for your kind words. It's great coming back on here and getting to talk to you. I care about you a lot, and just being able to talk to you again is always like a great treat for me. And I know for me, one of my favorite things over the past years being in the middle of this thing has been, the peoples and the friendships that you've built. You mentioned Gio, you mentioned Vega, all of these great people that have been a part of this movement, that are so talented and so kind and so generous. It's just, that's honestly the best part about being part of this movement. It's the incredible people in it. And one of my favorite memories has been with you. Like I'm sure you remember November 17th of, I think it was 2 years ago now, when we did that huge trending event when we were just DMing each other back and forth during the whole day about what might be coming up next, who might be tweeting next. So it's been such a great ride with you, and I hope you have me back on.
Yeah, man. Whenever you want to be on, you're always welcome. And definitely, let's not wait as long this time. I'm gonna extend that invite out a little bit sooner and see what, maybe after Army of the Dead or something, we can kind of discuss that movie or some huge, November 17th type news that we may or may not get at some point in the future. I think that'd be fun. And regardless though, there will be a link for Manu's Twitter in the description of today's episode. You can enjoy the previous things that Manu has done on the RT Snyder Cut YouTube channel, on the Film Exiles podcast, which is available on your favorite podcatchers. You've been on the Exiles Network podcast as well with Lupe, and you've made some appearances on there too. So plenty of places where you can catch up on the other creative things that Manu has been doing outside of the Snyder Cut movement, but also very much involved in the Snyder Cut movement.
Knee deep in the movement. Knee deep.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you once again for joining us, Manu. And to you on the other side, you can find us at thereasonsimbroke.com. That will give you a link on everywhere you can find us, including the Discord lounge. That's where a lot of the co-hosts that you have heard in the past couple of weeks hang out. And you will find the link in that description and also at the website. But it is another great place to, build upon these friendships and just have fun sharing memes sometimes. Sometimes that's enough to get me through the day on some of the tougher ones. So it's a good thing I would suggest anyone with Discord definitely jump on and meet some of these co-hosts, ask them questions. These are guys that love this stuff and have a lot of fun. So outside of that, thank you all once again for tuning in. All will be well.
Thank you, man.
I've got to tell you though, Manu, if they can make up what they've done to poor Steppenwolf, if we do get the Tiger King and the Netflix Army of the Dead, even if it's okay, fine, he's in jail, but let's get a look-alike, and maybe he's not a zombie. Maybe he joins the crew, and maybe he helps. Maybe there's a zombified Carol Baskin that he can finally go after, and that's kind of where he has to go after her, or he gets left behind as he holds off the zombie horde, but he just wants to go after Carol Baskin. And that's one way they can make up this Steppenwolf thing, by making Tiger King a hero in Army of the Dead. I'm sure that's on Zach's priorities.
You know what? I love that idea. They should definitely do that. But I don't think that it would be good enough to have a lookalike. I'm sure I'm sure Zach can find a way to shoot Joe in prison.
Yeah, I mean, they did it during COVID. They did it to Ezra Miller when he was shooting that film at Warner Brothers, I think. Like I said, they have to at least try, because how awesome would it be to get an Army of the Dead that Carol Baskins is going toe to toe with Joe? Fuck yes! Now I want that fucking movie. Make that the anime spinoff. Record him in jail, have him do voiceover. That's the fucking anime spinoff.
Oh, I'm with you 100%. Let's do it. Let's send a message out to Zach and the producers. They still have a month's time. I'm sure the picture's not completely locked yet.
There is time. It can happen. Let's find out.
Yes, exactly.